before I get started, you saw the little warning. Let me just start with this. If you don't want to hear me sounding like a little elitist fucking prick, you need to turn this off now. Bottom line. Because I am going to sound like something I absolutely hate, which is an absolute elitist fucking prick. Because that is just the way it is. Okay, I watched Bill's video. It's fine. It's wonderful. It's a great, great thoughts, very good, except in reality, it will never work. Why will it never work? Because let's take the WWE as a great example. Why in the fuck should they listen to us when you have so many fucking morons out there that every chance they get, they talk about how John Cena should not be anywhere close to the main event, maybe even shouldn't be in the WWE, and they don't want to see him on TV. Yet when they look at their books and they go, God damn, this guy's bringing in more money than anybody else, these motherfuckers don't know what they're talking about. Therein lies the problem. Is we have people in this community that don't understand that this is for a business, and that you have to make money, which means that the guys that bring in the money are going to be pushed above the guys who aren't bringing in money. Now people can talk about, well, this guy's been given a chance over this guy, that, I don't give a shit. The fact of the matter is, John Cena makes a shitload of fucking money. We all know it. It's all out there, and you can look it up. He makes a shitload of fucking money. If he makes a shitload of fucking money, doesn't matter how good, doesn't matter how bad he is in the ring, he's gonna get pushed. And as long as people keep talking about he needs to go away, the WWE is not gonna listen to us. And that's the God-honest fucking truth. And until this community can come to grasp with the fact of that, they're never going to listen to us. It's just the way it is. Among the very other fucking things that people talk about, they have no fucking clue what they're talking about, and they need to shut the fuck up. This is the God-honest truth. There's probably about 10% of the internet wrestling community that knows what the fuck they're talking about, and nobody else. And the rest of them, maybe the vast majority of them know somewhat what they're talking about. Even on YouTube, I would say there's probably, maybe, since I've been on here, 10 people that I would say know what the fuck they're talking about. Myself, I'm being biased there. Jared, being biased again. Calvin A. Hobbs. Oliver, who doesn't even make videos anymore, but knew more about indie wrestling in the U.S. than anybody I've ever fucking met or anybody I've ever fucking read on the internet. Let's see. Bradmaster13, who's younger than almost every single one of you motherfuckers are going to watch this. And he understands this business better than just about every single one of you. And it's stupid, okay? Crazy Mike. Let's see, I did Calvin A. Hobbs, I did Instant Classic, Dirty White Boy. Let's see, who else would I throw in there? Ring Mistress, and I don't know, I'm sure there's somebody else, there's 9 right there that I would actually say understands the business to an extent that they could go to any message board on the internet, talk about wrestling, and not get laughed at out of the fucking board, which I can't say about probably 90% of the people on the internet. I really can't, because if you think so, I'll tell you what. You go to Death Valley Driver, you post on there some of the nonsensical bullshit some of you people talk about, and watch what happens. Watch what happens. That board has a reputation for a reason. There's a reason why you have all these little internet, news sites that don't like that board. It's because that board calls out bullshit when they see it. And they will make you look like a little freaking idiot if you do bullshit. That's why. You have to bring it, you have to know what you're talking about, and you have to completely understand what you're talking about. And if they call you on it, you got to be able to back it up. And that's the problem. Most people don't know how to back it up. And so what we're left with are all of these people that think they know what they're talking about and have no fucking clue what they're talking about, because they have this stupid, idiotic view of, if the WWE is not targeting me, then they suck. And they don't understand the bigger picture. So, let's talk about this We Want Wrestling. Bill talked about, everybody wants more wrestling, more wrestling, more wrestling. You want a pure wrestling product? Go watch UFC. Which, by the way, gets crappy ratings when it gets on television. And that's the God-honest truth. I get sick and tired of going on these stupid websites and hearing, oh, UFC did so good on the ratings. And then I look at the rating and I'm like, SmackDown does better than that. Raw does far better than that. And there's only a couple times in which UFC has actually got a rating that I would say, ooh, that kind of rivals the WWE. Only a few times. They do better than ECW, just slightly. And, Ultimate Fighter, which is supposed to be their big giant success, very seldom does better than, sometimes doesn't even do better than Impact. It does like Impact, ECW numbers, and that's their big, huge fucking success. I will never understand it. Now, sure, they do great on pay-per-view. No doubt about it. People say, well, that's what matters is pay-per-view. The problem is, that's the only thing they do better than WWE is. Pay-per-view. Look at live attendance. WWE blows them out of the water. They do. They blow them out of the water. When UFC actually runs an event in the same arena the WWE usually runs, the WWE hands down beats them. It's not even freaking funny. And, live attendance, we don't usually see gates for the WWE, so we don't know between the WWE and the UFC who actually pulls in better gates. I would imagine probably WWE because of merchandise sales. Probably does, because that's where most of their business is from. And yet, what do we always hear? UFC is kicking the crap out of WWE. And in truth, the only place where they're kicking the crap out of the WWE is the 18 to 34 segment. That is it. Below that segment, WWE is much stronger. Above that, WWE is much stronger. So people need to get over this. People need to stop wanting to compare WWE and UFC and say, see, if the WWE actually tried to copy UFC, or if wrestling in general tried to copy UFC, they would do better. No, they wouldn't. We've tried that. That happened before. You know where that happened before? It happened in Japan. For years, since you didn't have MMA, okay, they had this hybrid wrestling where it looked real. They put it as sport, and then guess what happened? MMA came along and said, fuck you, and pretty much almost put them all out of business. So, no, that's not going to work. The thing that pro wrestling has over MMA is the storylines. This is why creative is so important in pro wrestling. It's because of the storylines. Don't believe me? Go back and actually look how many people watched Steamboat and Flair at Clash of the Champions live. Go back and look. It wasn't too many people. Compare that to the people that were following the WWE at the moment. Wrestling wasn't as good. But the storylines were so much better, people didn't care. You give me a storyline where I actually want to see the ending, want to see what the ending is, and have a and I believe I'm going to get a sense of satisfaction at the end of the feud. Okay, the match can be okay, and I'll probably still buy the pay-per-view to see that. As opposed to, well, this feud has sucked. Maybe the match is going to be good, but the feud has sucked, and so then you start questioning, do I really want to watch it or not? Where if the match was going to be really, really good, and the feud was really, really good, and you mix them together, you had instant box office. So yes, storytelling is important. The stories are important. That is what they have over MMA. And the fact that they suck at it currently is one of the biggest problems they have. It's not the guys in the ring. It's not the fact that they don't have guys who could be superstars. It's none of that. It's the guys in the back who are coming up with storylines. It is creative. They are the problems. In both TNA and WWE, they are the fucking problems. There's very, very little about that I don't think anyone can understand. If you don't believe me, go back and actually watch true early ECW. The matches are okay at best sometimes, but you know what? The booking was so fucking awesome, nobody fucking cared, because it was like, oh my god, look how awesome this is. And the matches don't really deliver, but good god, the storylines are so fucking awesome, I don't care. That's the truth. See, and therein lies the problem, is that so many of you guys say, oh, I want wrestling, I want wrestling, I want wrestling. That's fine, I want wrestling too, but you're not going to get the wrestling without the storylines. So creative has to be far better. Just, it has to be. I mean, look, most people will admit that Warrior Hogan, great match. Now, if you scientifically look at it and look at it as a match itself, my God, it's not that great. It's okay at best. But with the drama and everything that was with that match, that makes that match good. Storytelling is what WWE had over boxing, and it's now what it has over MMA. Well, not WWE, but pro wrestling in general. That's what it has. That's what it can do better, because boxing and MMA have to pray that they can get a good storyline, and then they don't screw it up like MMA often does, because they're like, well, we can't be too pro wrestling match, which is absolutely stupid, and I'm sure boxing promoters just laugh their asses off every time they hear that, because that's what boxing would love to be. So you always have that, you know. You have guys currently in the WWE who are writing, who are wrestling fans, but they were only wrestling fans of the WWE in a very specific time. They are not die-hard wrestling fans that understand the way that wrestling works. They understand what works and what doesn't work in pro wrestling. They understand that you have to, you know, how you build a feud. They haven't seen enough feuds build up properly to know, you know, you build up a feud this way, and then you can prolong the feud, and it's much better that way. You know, it's how it looks. I mean, you have guys in the WWE right now who are writing the WWE who think wrestling is a joke and that it is below them to write. Now, it's a good job, so they're going to write it, but they don't believe in the entertainment value of pro wrestling. I firmly believe that. You can watch it when it goes. They make it look like a joke. It comes off like a joke, and because of that, it doesn't work. And that's a huge, huge problem. You need people in there that believe in the product and are willing to try to make the product better and try to make it believable. Because when you have somebody writing pro wrestling that believes in pro wrestling, you can tell. You can believe in it. You know, hey, these guys actually get where you're going. And there is the problem. Because if they believe wrestling is shit, and if they're writing shit, they're going to write shit. But then comes Freddie Prinze Jr., who is a pro wrestling fan. Everything that I've read so far has said this guy is a pro wrestling fan. He's not a historian of pro wrestling, but he's at least a pro wrestling fan. That's why I really haven't talked about Freddie Prinze Jr., because at least he is a pro wrestling fan. At least he gets it. And at least he's within that age group that he knows, hopefully, what most of us want to see. I think there's a reason why I've seen people actually talk about this. That SmackDown didn't get a lot better once he came on to SmackDown, but it did get better and it did improve, and I think that was a very big part of it. I think the other reason why, you know, a lot of people have said SmackDown is the better product is because Michael P.S. Hayes runs SmackDown. He is a guy who is, you know, was a wrestler. He was in the business. You have a lot of guys that, you know, are in the WWE on the writing side that were never in the business. You very, very few, not enough of them. Now, I think you do need Hollywood guys, because I think Hollywood guys can do things well. I think some of the comedy skits they do at times are marvelous and are great. But you need wrestling guys there to explain to the Hollywood guys what works, what doesn't in a wrestling ring, in the concept of pro wrestling. Therein lies the chance. You know, and not only that, but Vince has to completely believe. He has to believe in the storylines. He has to let the storylines progress a little bit more than he does. I will completely admit, when something doesn't work, you need to not use it. But if you don't even give it the chance to see if it's going to work, then it doesn't do any good either. And it's much better if you at least give it the chance to work, and then say, okay, well, that doesn't work. Well, why didn't that work? Okay, maybe we can change it. You have to do that. You have to at least believe in what you're trying to put on television, because if you don't, it's not going to come off good, and no one's going to care about it. You know, that brings us to TNA, and TNA definitely doesn't listen to its fans. You know, Bill talked about us uniting in one voice. The problem is we have pretty much united in one voice when it comes to the fire Russo chants, get rid of Russo, change the direction of the product. And what's TNA done? Sat on their hands, not done anything, and says, well, we think we know the best way for the product. Buy rates haven't gone up, ratings haven't gone up. You would think at some point they would say, hey, maybe we do need to do something different. You would think, but they haven't, and they're not listening to us. Neither company has the right writers, in my opinion. I definitely feel like they need younger writers, and they don't have that. And I'm not saying, people are probably going to say that I'm saying this just to bitch and moan and complain and say, you know, I'm not in the fucking business and I'm pissed off about it. This has nothing to do with that. But think about this. Right now, the way the business is set up, if Eric Bischoff, Paul Heyman, or James E. Cornette were trying to get in the business, it would be almost impossible for those three guys to get in this business. And even though I'm not the biggest Eric Bischoff fan, if you don't think that Eric Bischoff at least was important to this business, you're a fucking moron. You really are. He changed a lot about this business for the better. He did a lot of bad things too. I'd say it's about a 50-50 split. maybe a little bit more than good, but it's pretty close. All of that needs to, neither of those guys would be in it, and that's part of the problem. Now, around the country now, you do have, and this is one of the weird things about pro wrestling right now, is that you have this resurgence of indies. You have, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, you have Ring of Honor, you have IWA Mid-South, which has continued to live on. You have the NWA seemingly making a go of it and starting to become stronger and stronger, and you have to kind of wonder to yourself, the money and the attention is there, but it's not there for the WWE and TNA. So what's going on? Where is all of that going? When young non-wrestlers, when guys who are not guys that were ever in the ring can't make it in the business, that is a problem. And I would point to local promoters too, because we often hear this on the internet community when promoters go, oh, those internet geeks, they don't know what they're talking about. Because you do have this mentality of a lot of these promoters that don't get that ECW changed everything. It literally changed everything. It changed the way you needed to book, because it showed the audience that, hey, you can book wrestling in a different way. And it showed them that. And people need to realize that after ECW, it changed the way you have to book, and it changed the way you have to set up things. It doesn't change the way you need to do matches. It doesn't change that. I mean, people think that, all ECW was for was hardcore. It wasn't like that. You look at the storylines they ran. You look at how they ran those storylines. The fact that so many promoters and so many guys within the industry don't get that right there it changed. Vince doesn't even get this. I mean, think about it. You got to a point, the Monday Night Wars were over. What did he do? He went back to what he was doing before the Monday Night Wars began, and that's why we're at where we are now. Because you have the exact same formulaic bullshit that was going on that almost put him out of business. And he can't fathom that, hey, wait a minute. What were we doing after, right after the Monday Night Wars? What were we doing when Paul Heyman was here? What were we doing when James E. Cornette? Cornette even gets that and he hates Paul Heyman. Gets that it changed the way you have to book the business, because it changed the expectations of the fans. The fans are much smarter now. The internet did this too. The fans are much smarter now. They're much harder to con now, because that's all wrestling is. Pro wrestling is nothing more than a big giant con game. The guys out in the ring, those are the players. The guys backstage, those guys orchestrating the con. You can have the guys in the ring could be the very best guys at pulling off a con, but if the guys in the back aren't orchestrating a good con, it doesn't matter. It doesn't work. It's horrible, and it's ridiculous. Which brings me to this point. And this point is this. This is one of the other things that I think is utterly bullshit, and I think a lot of you fucking idiots need to get through your head. This total TV 14 bullshit, because that's what it is. People have this, they're targeting young kids now, so it's bad, it's horrible. That automatically means that the show is going to be sucky. Does it now? Does it? Let me give you two animated shows that came out roughly about the same time. One was Batman the Animated Series, the old one that was started on Fox and you now see sometimes on Boomerang, for those of you that have Boomerang. That. Most people consider that a classic cartoon show, yet it was geared towards kids. And then you have Spawn the Animated Series, which was on HBO, which was definitely not geared towards kids. It was more of an adult animated series with sex and drugs and nudity and all sorts of stuff. Okay? So which one's better? Most people that have seen both would say Batman is the better show. Why? Because it was better written. Think about it, folks. Just because you're limiting yourself on what you can show on television doesn't mean it's not going to be as good. It doesn't. The Incredibles. The Incredibles is a great superhero movie. Maybe you could argue the best superhero movie ever. Yet there have been darker, there have been more violent, more all of those things, types of superhero movies. Maybe not quite as good. Darker, more adult does not mean better. People need to get that through their head. It doesn't mean better. Now, does that mean the writers have to do more things and maybe have, double layered storylines that go for kids and adults? Perhaps. Or maybe you just do, storylines that are just a little bit above the kids' heads. The adults still get it, and the adults can still like it. or, older teenagers. Whatever. PG, the whole TV-14 bullshit, because that's exactly what it is in my opinion, is just that. Bull fucking shit. I don't know why, I don't know who thought this was, that, oh, the WWE is starting to, go towards kids. They did that in the 80s. I still, to this point, do not get what any of that has to do with anything. Okay, also, let's get back to TNA. You would think TNA would be the one that would listen to the internet wrestling community. Here's why. Most of us know, the majority of your money is made on pay-per-views. You got house shows. That's where your bread and butter money is from. Is house shows. But pay-per-view money, that's your other big money. That's where you got to make it on pay-per-view. Here you have TNA. TNA draws in about 10,000. 15 I think is the lowest they've ever gone. Normally they get up to about 30, 35,000. Every once in a while they'll peak up to about 50 and 60, but usually it's about 30, we'll say 35,000 and below. Yet, most people would say in the U.S., the internet wrestling community consists of about 250,000 people. Now, if you could just get, now these are die-hard wrestling fans. I know people are going to bring up torrents and all of that crap. Just hear me out. These are die-hard wrestling fans. If you can only get 10% of those die-hard wrestling fans buying your product, you have a fucking problem. You have. And it shows that TNA doesn't get it. They don't get that they need to change their product, and they don't get that they ever will change their product. Their problems are almost exactly the same as the WWE's. The difference is the WWE's been around for a while. They have enough money, they have enough other things to let them sustain, and they can put on a so-so product. TNA can't do that. And that's why I am harder on TNA. That's why I think other people are harder on TNA. And then we get into the whole that. We get into the fact that you have people that think TNA is great and wonderful and all of this stuff and are willing to defend TNA to its death. And then you got people that can see what TNA really is and calls it out, and if you call, then you're called biased. What the fuck? I wish people would explain that to me. Bill also talked in his video about unpredictability, and that's what wrestling needed. Unpredictability is great, but it should not replace storylines that make sense. You shouldn't do unpredictability just to do unpredictability. Eric Bischoff fell down that path with the NWO angle. NWO angle started really good, and then people started joining it just so you could have a swerve. He was doing a swerve just to swerve the fans. Swerves work far, far better when fans can see what's going to come up and you give it to them. See what's going to happen, you give it to them. See what's going to happen, you give it to them. See what's going to happen, then you swerve. That swerve has a lot more meaning. When you're swerving just to swerve people, it doesn't work. We've seen that in TNA. It doesn't work. People don't like it. People are like, this doesn't make any sense. People want storylines that make sense. If you have storylines that make sense, people will go along with you. If you then in turn have matches that are good enough to, put an explanation point on those feuds, that makes that feud better. And then you start working from there. And we have a lot of people in this community that don't get it. Basically what this all kind of comes down to is storylines need to be better written, and there has to be an influx of new creative talent in both companies. Not just in both companies, but throughout wrestling in general. Because we're seeing a lot of the same stuff. You have a lot of people in the business on the creative side that don't understand that the business has changed and that the business is not what it was 10 years ago, even. I would say, well, probably 10 years ago, but 15 years ago. And they're running it like it was. They're running it like the fans are not as smart as they are. The fans have gotten smarter. The fans get smarter, you have to be smarter, and you have to be smarter to con the fans. If that means that, hey, you give the fans what they expect, you don't try to fool the fans, you say, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen, and then when something truly shocking happens, it makes it truly shocking. The problem is, we have too many people on the internet that are like, we need everything on unpredictability. We need unpredictability, 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 and they even say unpredictability that makes sense. Well, the only way unpredictability makes sense is if you have storylines that have led up to it to make sense. And this is the problem with the internet wrestling community, is you have too many people that don't understand these simple things. They don't. And if they don't understand it, why should any of the companies listen to them? It's a great, grandioso idea for us to all band together, for us all to, in one loud voice, say what we think is wrong. But therein lies the problem. We all think there's so many different things that are wrong with the companies. We all don't agree with what's wrong with the companies. You have people, like I said, that think John Cena is the problem, or people like John Cena is the problem, and can't get and don't understand the business enough to not see that. You have too many people that think it's all backstage politics. Backstage politics has been around long before the WWE was even around. It's been around forever. Okay? Now, is it a problem? Now, can it be a problem? Yes, it can be a problem. WCW showed us it can be a problem. But it's up to the guys in creative to stand up to those guys and say, no, this is the way we're going to do it. We have our ideas, and this is why we're going to do it. Okay? Do you have to coax egos? Yes, you have to coax egos. Writing wrestling is not easy because you do have to coax egos. You do have to make guys feel like they are. But when you have a situation going on where it is evident guys are not happy where they are, they don't believe they're going to be, you can tell that they don't believe they're going to be pushed, and so they just go out there just to go out there, and they don't have that joy of wrestling. You know, that comes across to the fans, and the fans buy into that. If I'll say this, if you truly want to see a change in pro wrestling, if people want something to really rally around and really cry out for and say, we can strike on this, that I think we all could fucking agree with, and that's going to be, is TNA should kind of do what the WWE did when they were getting their ass handed to them by WCW, and say, you know what, bring in I will say this, if you truly want to change pro wrestling, if you want to see a actual change in pro wrestling, it's going to start small, and this is what you do. People want a rallying cry, people want something they can latch on to. Let me throw this idea out there, and let's see what people think about this. Simply write to TNA and say, you know what, you do live pay-per-views, you know, you apparently are going to start doing more live impacts. You're going to do a live impact in Las Vegas. Let us start bringing signs to the shows that say whatever we want within tasteful reasons. I have to say within tasteful reasons because you don't want stuff on there that people, you know, that you don't want to show on television. But don't censor what the fans want to say. Let them bring whatever signs they want. If they want to bring in signs that are mostly about the WWE, bring in signs that are mostly about the WWE. If they want to bring in signs that say, you know, Jarrett needs to sell the company, let them bring in those signs. Let them bring in whatever signs they want to bring in so at least their voices can be heard. The WWE did that, and while I don't think it was the single thing that changed everything, I do think it changed some things. I think that fans got to see more of what people were talking about. I think people got to see signs that made them feel more like part of the show. And I think it would help. I think that would be one small step, because then you would at least have people showing up at the shows that feel like, hey, my voice is being heard, and that could be a small step. Is that going to fix everything? God, no. Like I said, the only thing that's going to truly fix anything is when you get new creative talent in both companies, or both companies feel like they have to change, and they don't feel like that now. There's nothing to show them the way there needs to be. You know, I talked about this on my last video, or not my last video, but a couple of videos ago, where I talked about Ring of Honor not being on TV. I firmly believe if Ring of Honor was on television, I think that you would see a product that was so different. And a lot of people say, oh, Ring of Honor would never work on TV, and to those people I say, you're fucking morons, because it would work beautifully. You know, look at ECW. When ECW first showed up on the new ECW, WWE's ECW, you know, they were having 40 minutes of wrestling. They're having long matches. Most of their matches went, 10, 15 minutes. So I don't believe that. I think you can still put on the same quality matches. I think you can, are the matches going to be as important as they are from show to show? No, they're not. You're going to get jobber matches, and you're going to get matches like that. You're going to get squash matches, and you're going to not get the quality, but you're going to get better wrestling action, and I definitely think you get better storylines. That's just my point. But if you want something to truly grab onto and say, okay, what is something we can start small? Definitely TNA, because WWE's not going to do it. WWE definitely not going to do it. TNA allowing fans to bring whatever signs they want, within reason, of course, within tasteful reasons. As long as that's going on, I think that would definitely help start things. I definitely think that would be just something to see and something to start, and a small little baby step along to much bigger and better things. But before anything, the internet wrestling community has to fucking smart up. They have to realize this is a business. They have to realize certain things. They have to stop being little crybabies about every little thing. And they, again, why should the WWE in particular listen to us when the guy that is making them the most money, you got people on the internet saying he shouldn't even have a fucking job. Therein lies the biggest rub of all. I'm out. Later.